to Paul Gibbs, who is professor at the University of Babes-Bolyai in London, and one of the most creative, innovative personalities in transdisciplinary education. I have to say that the title of our Congress arose in a talk we had with Paul in China at the last Atlas meeting, when I told Paul that perhaps I would propose next Atlas to be in Romania. So I will say, but what would be the thing that's the most important thing? So Paul said, transdisciplinarity and being. I contracted that to being of transdisciplinarity. That's the story of the title. Please.
Well, thank you very much. My job really, it's very easy. It's to make Babes-Bolyai look even better. Okay. You can see from the quote there, the wonderful but painful journey from sorrowful excluded middle towards the land of the hidden third comes from one of Babes-Bolyai's books. If you should add the word discuss at the end, it sounds like an exam question set by Babes-Bolyai himself. And as a student of his work, that's what I'm going to try to address in this presentation. In his metaphysics of transdisciplinarity, Niculescu focuses on levels of reality and provides a wholeness in the cosmological process in which being is constantly changing within the realities that it creates. In accepting his fundamental premise of the ontology of transdisciplinarity, today I should like to explore briefly an issue that is central to my reading of this, and that is change. In this, I see similarities between the work of his work and that of Aristotle, not in the notion of substance, but in the distinction Niculescu draws between substance and the causal or emergent powers that weave experiences of reality for the individual. Change is the active and passive causal powers are the energizing forces that enables our potentiality to flow into action. In doing this, they enable other realities which exist beyond the momentum of action and form a temporality that enables us to express our becoming in ways that are not simply inherited. I concentrate in this paper on exploring Niculescu's theory of the emergence of the temporal transdisciplinary attitude, rather than on his considerable work on knowledge and problem solving, although all are clearly linked by his three axioms. To do this, I use the tools of potentiality and actuality, first discussed extensively by Aristotle in his book Theta in chapter 9 of the Metaphysics, but not too much, and the notion of causal powers. Niculescu's theory is that being is essentially becoming, potentiality, not actuality. That is, a notion of dynamic, emergent causal powers and non-existence, as opposed to Aristotle's position of static actualism regarding the nature of being and reality. Niculescu's axioms are used to explore the hidden third and to open up a way of perceiving it as a transdisciplinary nexus of both passive and active actual powers, able to shape and construct realities according to an individual's actual being and the way in which their possible worlds reveal themselves. This acknowledges what exists potentially is ontologically dependent on what exists actually. Aristotle uses the term themanis to cover this, considering the idea of possible worlds and their realities in a way in which all sentient, material, and spiritual entities, real and actual, are co-created in the process of the flow from potentiality to actuality. Moreover, like Hegel and Whitehead before him, Niculescu's views may rest on a transcendental spirit. I begin by considering the notion of the included middle, the hidden third, and realities, and then I attempt to develop these positions through the idea of potentiality, actuality, and introduce the transcendentals. I start with Lupescu, Niculescu, and Bruner's definition of the included middle, in which, contrary to the traditional reading of Aristotle, there are three states of being, A, not B, and T, where T stands for the included middle. This third element contradicts classical logic, especially on the grounds of the principle of non-contradiction, which allows any state where A can be both present and absent. Yet the essence of this thinking can be found in the earlier writings of Aristotle in the Metaphysics, where he suggests that beings are capable of both being and not being, and he adds that a state of not yet to be, which is held within the potential yet to be revealed. On this rather controversial reading of Aristotle, then, the three logics of Niculescu can claim a more ancient ontological footing than myself. The hidden third, this is my second element, is a space-time manifold that exists in the convergence of subject and object, and where, I want to suggest, causal powers creatively deploy themselves. The binary logic Niculescu resists is one that reduces difference to disqualification and exclusion, rather than inclusion and integration, essential to transdisciplinarity. Niculescu himself explains his concept as the zone of non-resistance, which plays the role of the third between the subject and the object. The included middle is a tool that can be used as an integrative process. It allows us to cross different levels of reality or of perception, and to integrate effectively, not only in thinking, but also in our own being and becoming, in the multi-realities and multi-temporalities of our universe. The use of the hidden third is as a place for transformative processes, not as an abstraction of reality, but as a living reality, touching all dimensions of our ways of becoming. Its use may well be implied in the answering the questions raised by the Oxford University's Future of Humanity Institute, who seeks to answer questions of how a technologically mature species, which wishes to settle as much of the universe as possible, as fast as possible, could possibly do that. Similarly, Cambridge University's Centre for Study of Existential Risk, who asks questions concerning what are the risks and how can they be mitigated about humans' own extinction. Both are interdisciplinary research centres whose thinking is creatively emergent from the hidden third nexus of transdisciplinary potentialities. Without the notion of the hidden third, questions become almost unaskable, let alone unanswerable. The case for ontological transdisciplinarity begins with the consideration that, outside of a few experiential and even fewer naturally occurring closed contexts, a multiplicity of causes, mechanisms, and potential theories are always involved in the explanation of any event of concrete phenomena. However, to get to transdisciplinarity, we have to add consideration of the emergence of complexity. Niculescu designates an ensemble of systems which are invariant under certain laws as levels of reality which are different if, while passing from one to another, there is a break, a discontinuity, which is such as the fundamental concept of causality. We might also consider emergent levels of reality as unilaterally dependent on a more basic one, irreducible to a more basic one, and additionally, causally irreducible to the domain in which the basic one operates. If such emergence is involved, then the characteristics of open systems will have to be studied in a multidisciplinary way. Furthermore, if in addition to an emergent level, there is a qualitatively new or emergent outcome from the causal disciplinary nexus at work, then the knowledge required can no longer be generated by additive pooling of knowledges of the various disciplinary concerns, but requires a whole integration of genuine transdisciplinary, in a transdisciplinary way, of becoming, that is, experientially and emotionally. Realities are thus the foregrounding of entities as manifestations in their actuality. Ontologically, the most important result of our analysis is the need to understand a form of reality in which several irreducibly distinct mechanisms and potentially emergent levels of reality combine to produce a novel presence. The different levels necessary to the understanding of the result may be conceived as interacting or coalescing in a continuum or laminated system of levels of reality. Temporal events are perceptions of experience of a reality that is being co-created. In this, Whitehead mirrors Heidegger. They both view human experience as a concerned engagement in a network of worldly events, grounded in a doctrine of intentionality and coping that is fundamental to our existence. Even so, Western philosophy has repeatedly considered the world as a collection of isolated factors and thus susceptible to abstraction and empirical study. Whitehead and Heidegger propose coherence in the intrinsic referential character of both experience and its data, allowing the temporal and the spatial intentionality in experience to reveal itself in what I will claim contributes to our understanding of transdisciplinary becoming. We thus have levels or degrees of reality in the appearance of entities to us. The entities are both singular and integrated as our temporal being, and revealed, I would suggest, through the hermeneutics of disciplinarity, and emerge first as a single event in the entity of our experience, but then become one with that entity. Becoming, as the actualization of potentiality, can form a continuity or disruption to the flow of reality of one's world. It is where the creation of realities can merge, not grounded in the abstract of empirical theories, but in the experience of engaging in a world configured by the creative process of becoming. I propose that the causal powers of the hidden third are those which shape the transdisciplinarity of our reality. The causal powers can be shaped by thinking differently about the transcendental structure of becoming, through what is romantic and poetic in the first instance, rather than rarefying it through logic and calculative thinking associated with disciplines and forms of grammatical languages they employ. These powers work with a world of experience, yet are not constrained by it, leading to a new configuration of the world, a new reality, as in the sense used by Niculescu. These causal powers might be considered to be the transcendentals, developed by Catholic medieval philosophy of the times of Aquinas, Urquhart, and Duns Scotus, resting on the ontotheological recognition of the transcendentals, are rooted in the unity of being, properties of being, quote, being. These possible powers are motivated by truth, goodness, and beauty, while their negation are falsehood, evil, and ugliness. And through the process of actualization, these together construct possible worlds for the flourishing or for despair. This enables what Simon Weil called the realities outside this world, a reality of the good to exist for all of us. It's important is too difficult to overestimate at a time of post-humanistic reconstruction of what becoming might be. These transcendent powers are clearly compatible with the Charter of Transdisciplinary's notion of transdisciplinary attitude, which identified a number of fundamental characteristics. In subsequent writing, Niculescu placed importance on these, especially for those engaged in transdisciplinary potentialities in the sphere of education. We are thrown into this world as we are taught it exists. Yet we are able to free ourselves from our constraints of the structure by seeing the world as it might be for ourselves, not, for instance, through the methodologies and calculative thinking of others, such as the power holders of academic disciplines and professions. To realise the potential of that resides within us as an actuality to become, is to perceive the potential of action as a transdisciplinary reality, nurturing a transdisciplinary attitude. Rhetoricaally, these ideas help us define the process of becoming civilized people, where the energizing of the powers of the transcendentals transform a potentiality into actuality. Is in an important section of process and reality, Whitehead deals directly with these notions of the actual world and potentiality that resides within the continuum of regions of reality in the extended quote shown here. This dynamic vision of the subject, as Bradetti suggests, enlists the creative resources of the imagination to the task of enabling transformative relations and actions in the present. This ontology is non-linear. It is made manifest by questioning the reality of our everyday experience in the knowledge we have of ourselves, and with the preparedness and courage to create new knowledge from that engagement. Becoming, then, is creating practical knowledge that is testable in the world of practice. It is the fusion of the passive and active causal powers in the transdisciplinary nexus of the hidden third, where we're able to become and able to question ourselves, seeking resolution through our actualities. Within the hidden third, as in an understanding of how the potentiality of being can be willed, forged in the area of emergent realities, freedom resides in our choice to act on our potential. And when our potentialities are motivated by the positive powers of the transcendentals, we flourish. These actualize within the non-resistant hidden third and can manifest themselves in multiple forms, shaping and patterning our ways of becoming, and are implicitly linked to the transcendental attitude. The exploration of the ways these causal powers bring us into becoming provides the potential for us to understand our life project and to seek the subject-object fusion, which is merely, if not merely, the alteration of the organism, but the fusion of pan-experiential reality within ourselves. Explorations of our being provide the potential for us to understand our life project and to seek it. It is not just deterministic, as Goethe suggests in the primal words, but neither is it unencumbered. It requires a blending of knowledges and realities in order that we might have the power and with which to reflect and deliberate upon the good to be achieved by our actions. The argument is then, in order to imagine the potentiality, one is foregrounded in the actuality of one's presence. Niculescu has warned us about the trapdoor and pitfalls of being, and like all radical philosophers, he raises our levels of vigilance and suspicion and puts us on guard to confront the anxieties that surround us. In the Heideggerian sense, he offers us the opening of the mystery of being with which I have tried to engage. So, to close, I return to Niculescu and ask, and who may well have answered the solution to my opening question all along, when he states, a true teacher cannot have disciples, only companions. He stimulates his companions to become, in their turn, teachers. Merci, Professor Niculescu, for doing so. Thank you.